Yes, this is Miss Taylor from Promise Boarding Home. I'm trying to get in touch with Miss Rachel. I talked to you the other day about scheduling an appointment for Brenda Wade. And can you call me back? I'd like to know if we can reschedule or make it for later in the afternoon. You want a hug?
Yeah.
Y'all right?
Yeah, I just had another show.
You had him. I know you did. That's what me and Yvonne was. Me and who's your caseworker now?
Lavonda.
We were scared of this.
Oh, but I'm okay.
You okay?
Yeah, I'm fine.
So we were. And
Really?
Amy called. And we was
Physically,
kind
I'm
of
just like
we was-
wiped, but mentally I'm fine.
okay. Cause we was worried that you didn't want this to throw you back.
No, I'm good.
You
I'm
good?
good? Yeah.
Okay. You just wanted a hug.
Yeah.
Get it on the order faster. For Megan. I need Megan. No. Let me handle.
I need to put.
What? What are you shaking your head for?
No, so you want me to get back on?
What a lot of people don't know, and I didn't know when I first started working here, is just how common mental illnesses are. It's 1 in 17 people have a serious and persistent mental illness.
I'm schizoaffective, which means I have part schizophrenia and part bipolar, because I can change.
Bipolar. I went through some depression since my mom passed away. I was depressed for a little while.
When I left my ex-husband and moved home, I developed depression and started taking an antidepressant.
I found out I was bipolar and had anti-anxiety order.
Psychosis, bipolar, schizoaffective, is that how you say it?
Yeah, schizoaffective.
And
Question is psychotic features involved.
yeah, those are the psychotic, those are the ones.
Schizoaffective with psychotic features, that was back in 2004. The secondary one, schizoaffective bipolar type, manic state. Third one was narcissism. Fourth one was, the last one is PTSD.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Brenda. Happy birthday to you. And more. Oh,
Wow.
nice job. When I first went to the mental hospital, I was like 19 years old, and I had just gotten married when I was 17, and we didn't have any money coming in the house. And he was like, "Lorraine, I need you to pretend like you're crazy so you can go to the mental hospital and get the medicine." And since then, I played like I was crazy. I went to the hospital, and ever since they had me on that medicine, I've been seeing things, hearing things, and but before I went to the hospital, I wasn't crazy, which sounds kind of weird, but it's true.
I first came here in 2006, and boarding homes was already an issue that this agency was concerned about. The way the standards read are, for example, we didn't want people lining up mattresses on floors. So what it says is that every bed has to have a bed frame in good condition. It has to have a box spring in good condition, a top mattress in good condition, and that all of the beds have to be, I think it's 4 feet apart. Everybody has to have a space at the table, and I think it's like 2 feet at the table. There has to be 1 bathroom for every 6 people or portion thereof. So if you've got 8 people, you have to have 2 bathrooms in the house.
I've been in 4 boarding homes, and this is the best boarding home I have ever been in, because I remember the last boarding home, they actually got shut down, because what they did, they would literally order us 1 pizza, 1 large pizza, and cut all those slices in half. And we would have to get one slice of pizza for dinner every night. That was our dinner. And then we weren't allowed to wash our clothes in that house. We had to go take our clothes to the laundromat and stuff like that. We don't have transportation. I have epilepsy. I can't drive.
Psychiatrists are trained, I was trained to really recognize these behavioral patterns and to assign a given medication to that pattern. So it's the sort of one ill, one pill model. And instead, of considering it that way, I think it's important to begin to look at them as symptoms, as collections of symptoms, in the same way that we would think about a fever, right? You wouldn't go looking for the gene for a fever. You wouldn't assume that a fever is meant to be treated the same way every single time. And it would be important to explore the root cause of a fever to begin to appropriately, engage the patient in treatment.
If I could change the law about the mental states, each time the treatment team patient has, there should be a lawyer in there present. A state lawyer should be there. Mental state lawyer should be present before anybody signs any signatures. Because if you give a normal human being enough time to, they teach us about living a death family, lost family, 5 stages of grief. But if you're not enough, if you don't have a right to cry, because you're sad, my father just passed away. If I'm not allowed to express the tears, and they're doping me in a Depakote and lithium for depression, I'm sad. My father just died. I just lost my business. No, you cry in front of a psychiatrist or a doctor or a nurse, you actually gonna be guaranteed another week at least.
It's when men call each other Bubba. I hate that.
Bubba?
Yes, when they're like, hey Bubba. I hate that. I hate it when something is really cool and somebody says, killer.
Oh, Heather been with me for what? Over 2 years, but counting the time she was in Terrell. They brought her here to me from, what's the mental care? LifeNet. And she slept all the time. She tried to, I always have somebody here. And the girl was working with me. She said, Miss Tammy, she tried to drink some bleach. So that let me know I had to keep the bleach. I had to take everything, I gathered up everything I thought that she could do something to herself with, because we keep all the knives and stuff locked up. But the bleach and detergent and all that kind of stuff, we had to keep it locked up. She would go to the hospital because she felt like she was sick, and she would just, all the time, till they just finally sent her back to Cheryl after so many times they should have sent her back. She would not cut herself, but I can't remember her cutting herself, but she was always so suicidal. We just watched her. All I did was just show her a lot of love. Try to show her a lot of love. And so when she went to Terrell, I said, well, she's probably not coming back because she stayed gone so long. But when she got well in Terrell, she asked to come back here. She called me. And we loved her. I mean, they're all lovable. But you just got to give them attention. But Heather, she just was so depressed. Out of all the people I got, I think she was the most depressed one. And we worked with her and worked with her. She never bothered anybody. She never gave you any trouble, but it was always she wanted to kill herself. She would try to do stuff to kill herself.
Hi. What would you like me to say?
Oh, I don't know. Say hello.
Hello. I'm Heather. It's like...
My childhood was great compared to most people's. I was pretty shy, but I had both my parents, they were both involved. I had no big traumas. When I look back on my childhood, I just remember being a regular kid, playing with my brother and hanging out with my parents, shopping with my mom, going out on the boat with my dad, Christmases, and everything was just kind of what I guess you would say is normal.
'Cause pretty girls don't yell, and pretty girls don't cry, and pretty girls know how to be the apple of your eye. Pretty girls don't blink, pretty girls don't try, and pretty girls don't watch the world pass by.
I went into college and was very involved in journalism, and my major was journalism. We had a daily newspaper, and then my senior year, my last semester, I was editor-in-chief. I finished my bachelor's degree, and I had scholarship money awarded to me for work on the newspaper. I began teaching freshman English and starting my master's in English, and loved it. I met a guy that just really wowed me. You know, we ended up getting married, and we had a big wedding, and it was a big Jewish wedding. It was really good the first year or so. I ended up having a neck injury that was pretty bad, and there was a lawsuit involved.
I think after her accident at the spa where she hurt her neck, she may have been given, probably was given, painkillers. She may have not even realized she was depressed. I don't know. And then she had drugs for pain. And those cycles can start, it's my guess, and then you need more drugs for pain. And then you find out, well, there are drugs that'll make you less anxious.
All right, at this point, we've made the cheesecake, which we are not going to do on camera. Oh, let's show it. Come on, over the bridge. It's a little brown, but it's good. It's good. That's the way it's supposed to look. Yeah, it was a lot puffier earlier. Okay.
You know, as far as my sister, apparently, I guess she was starting to get, develop a very heavy pill problem. We got to check Heather in. We had a intervention, and Heather's just falling asleep while she's sitting there eating, and her, hitting her face on the plate, just in mid-sentence and stuff, and it's a mess. And so they checked her into a place, and at that point kind of realized that, hey, maybe this was bad.
I would think it would be easy to become very addicted to, I need this, I need this, I need this, so that I feel better. And to come up with, especially if you're very intelligent, okay, come up with the symptoms.
I didn't realize how bad this had gotten, and then at that point, it seems like her insurance would only cover 7-day stays at places, and then she became like a lab experience at that point. That's really the end, I think, of that was the beginning of the end of my sister in a big way, because it was like 7 days here, 7 days here, 7 days here, 7 days, and everybody was changing up the medication on her. And it just seemed to spiral her out of control, and then finally just got a call that she was suicidal in Austin.
And I can't imagine that helps mental illness at all, because treating it, as we have found out over years and years and years and years, is a roll of the dice. A drug that works perfectly for one person for clinical depression kills another one.
Sometimes I feel like it's still an apothecary shop and it's witchcraft, and they're trying to figure out what to give you, because there's no way they can scan your brain and find the exact problem you have and go, oh, they need this medication. That would be awesome, but they can't do that. They have to trial and error.
This is our morning and noon. Heather is the first victim.
I'm allergic to walking.
You keep walking. Heather. Call Brenda. She needs to come on.
Brenda.
Ray Jackson.
I got diabetes while I was in Terrell from Zyprexa, and it runs in my family anyway. And so they took me off Zyprexa.
But they overdosed you with Zyprexa too.
Yeah, they accidentally overdosed me one night on Zyprexa. They, and then I've got back problems from just sciatica, but the Seroquel I'm on now, which is it's an antipsychotic and it's a sleep medication I'm being taken off of because it can cause blood sugar spikes. And they think that's why I became insulin dependent, diabetic. And then now that I'm diabetic, I have to see a podiatrist because you have to check your feet and you have to really watch your eyes. And my liver has become inflamed and I have fatty liver disease now because of all of the medications.
I can't remember all the medications that I take. Truthfully, I think I've had a stroke that's messed up my thought pattern. So that's why I can't remember my medicines. If I don't look at a paper, I don't know what they are. And I just try to get along day by day.
I have an awful lot of medications. But the main ones are lithium and Seroquel. Propranolol is to help me with the shaking, although it's not working today very well. Clonazepam, it's an anti-anxiety drug, and gabapentin, which is a Tylenol 4, for my pain doctor. But I also have metformin because I'm diabetic, and I also have a thyroid medicine, Singulair, Propofol, Colace if I need it. I think that's about it.
I take Benadryl at nighttime to help me sleep. I take Ativan at nighttime to help me sleep. I take gabapentin. I think that's more like for pain or something like that. I'm on a high blood pressure medication. I can't remember what the name of it is, but my blood pressure goes up real high sometimes. I take propranolol at night times. In the morning times, I take a pill called Wellbutrin. Gabapentin in the morning times also. Ativan in the morning times also. And I believe Topamax. I might not be pronouncing it correctly, but I think that's it.
They'll sit you down for a couple of minutes, but they don't really listen to you. They just sit there and they try to rush you through what you got to say, and then they just quickly try to put you on some type of pill that you can barely afford. You know, these medications, they keep putting us on these different pills, but we're telling you that they're not working, and and they just don't really hear us. You know what I'm saying?
Who is actually mentally ill versus who are the selfish drug addicts that are always the victims and unaccountable for anything, that we're just looking to perhaps get on government benefits or something. How can we tell the difference between both of them? And then at what point when they are the victim unaccountable type person and they start taking all these pills and then become somewhat of a lab rat out there, do they really go mentally ill? How can I tell at that point when it is? I don't know. I'd have to have a serotonin level check on their brain and everything else. I don't have that.
I get one medication
one medication, and for that medication I have to take medication, and for that one I have to take a third medication. And if you drop them, because like Ativan is usually given for this anxiety, if they give you too much Ativan, you're gonna have anxiety. The sleeping pills are taken for the insomnia, but they have a reverse side effect on some people like me, and you actually can be very manic.
I was seeing a pain doctor for my fibromyalgia and my neck injury, and he had me on OxyContin again, and oxycodone, and Valium, and muscle relaxers, and Ambien, and all sorts of stuff. And it got to the point to where I was falling asleep while I was eating. I was dropping cigarettes on the bed. I was drugged.
A lot of them been over medicated, and a lot of them can go to the doctor and tell the doctor what they need, and they'll give it to them. Have you seen that bag of medicine down there? Would you like to see it? And I'm gonna tell you, Heather done came such a long ways by her being educated as she is. She helps me a lot because she'll go online and show me, and I'll say, Heather, come here. Now these pills here, I don't think shouldn't be mixed with these pills, but she has helped me. She helps me out a lot. But I'm gonna show you something. I'm gonna show you. That's Karina's.
I ended up having a neck injury that was pretty bad. I was pretty depressed about it. I was on pain medication, strong pain medication, and I kind of became a full-time job, actually, for him. And he cracked, I think, under the pressure of that. And you know, I said things that weren't so nice. He said and did some things that were not things that you want to do in a relationship. Now that I look back on it, I look at it like we're human, and I was doing the best I could, and he was doing the best he could, and it just kind of imploded. And it ended with me leaving one night and going back to my parents' house. And that was one of the most difficult nights and decisions I've ever made. It wasn't gonna work. And so we began the process of going through a divorce in 2005.
My mother had said that when her father was alive, he would get very depressed, and the doctor would tell him to take a trip, and he would revive his spirits, and he would feel better. And I thought, okay, that didn't ever to me sound like clinical depression. But then I started thinking about it, and I thought, well, maybe it was. Maybe it truly was. And then our father, who was a lovely human being but drank like a fish, was an alcoholic. I don't think he ever thought he was an alcoholic, but I think maybe alcoholism is a result of depression of some kind, mental illness of some kind. I don't know. He was certainly running from something, and drinking was his solution to it.
I had moved home because I was going through the divorce with Matthew. My dad seemed different than normal, just off a little bit. And I thought he was just very angry about what had gone on. I was in the hospital for 2 weeks after I left Matthew. I had 6 stomach ulcers they said from stress. I don't know. And my dad at the hospital was, instead of supportive, he was kind of irritated. And he was taking the drug Xanax for anxiety. And then when he would try to go down on his dose, he would feel worse. And then his doctor was having him try all these different antidepressants because he was feeling depressed.
My dad used to always talk when I would call him on the phone and everything, and want to come over and watch football games and stuff. And that stopped. When I would call him, he wouldn't really have a whole lot to say. And I asked what was wrong with him at that time. And, just kind of said that he had been depressed and found out he was taking meds for it. And just kind of saw, it was a different person. He wasn't the same person at that point. My dad was my best friend.
It was November 15th, and I had gone to my doctor's that day, and I came home and saw that my dad was the only one there. And I purposefully did not go home because I thought, if he's in a mood and he's irritated, I don't want to be around it. And I can, to this day, I still kick myself a little bit for not going home because things might have been different. I don't know. But he was stressed out about me and my mom and 10,000 other things. And my mom, I was driving around the neighborhood and my mom called me on my cell phone and said, "I think your dad's done something to himself." And I said, I'll be there in 2 seconds.
I see on the dining room table that there's folders set up and a letter sitting there. And so, and I just remember, to my loving family, and then, I'm sorry, and I hope one day you can forgive me. And it's been, such and such has been made very clear to me, recently. And, and then it ends with, I hope one day you can forgive me. Please have authorities enter the small room in the garage, and it's signed by him. And then at that point I was like, right out there in the garage, I just walked by it and didn't even realize he was in there. And, I guess he took a shotgun, and apparently there was a mirror on the wall. He did mention to me like 10 years before that, watching a show about suicide, that if you put a mirror on the wall, it's supposed to give you some kind of, I remember when I asked him about that, he knew the answer, like it's supposed to give you some kind of sense of self-perception or something. I can't remember exactly what he said.
I don't know if he wanted to admit that he saw his family having challenges that he had hoped that family would never have. I suspect my brother looked in the mirror and said, "What did I do wrong?"
He put a mirror on the wall, taped his driver's license to his chest, wrapped a comforter around him, and I guess put the shotgun in his mouth and pulled the trigger.
Everything fell apart after that for them. Absolutely everything fell apart after that. So, and you don't know what to do to help people. You're there and you don't know what to do. You feel impotent. I think Heather and Chad and Yvonne became unmoored because Bob had done, and I suspect you may have heard this from them, everything. I mean, he had done everything. He did finances, he did yard work, he kept the cars going, he just did everything. And I think they depended on him for everything. And I think Bob encouraged them to depend on him for everything. I think that maybe was the way he combated having a father that he felt he couldn't depend on. He had been everything and he was gone. And they didn't, I think instead of having 4 strong people that all leaned on each other at different points in time, They had a center pole that they all leaned on. And when the center pole was gone, they spiraled into whatever they needed to feel good. But at that point in time, losing him like that drastically, I think it just shattered their world, and they didn't know what to do with it.
After my dad died, at first my mother was really angry, and she ended up having me move out. Immediately following my father's death, I helped her reorganize the finances into her name and get the autopsy report and pick up whatever they had that were his belongings and all that kind of stuff. And then I moved into my own apartment, and we talked, but we didn't see each other for a little while. Then she recovered, and she actually got a lot better and started traveling and went to Paris on her own, and she was happy. And then it started to kind of fall apart. She was having trouble with anxiety. She just started staying home more and canceling plans and not going to the door if somebody came to visit her.
You know, after my dad died, we all spun, I think, into drugs and alcohol and doing whatever we could to numb our mind at that point. And I do remember not realizing maybe how bad it was with my mom until she started calling me and asking me if I could get more Xanax for her, But then I started asking, how much is your prescription for it and how long is it for and everything, and then I started realizing she's flying through this stuff. My mom, after that, Xanax was heavy, and then she decided to get off of that and check herself into detox at a hospital.
I will never forget picking Yvonne up from the hospital when she had gone in and admitted that she was a drug addict to prescription drugs. This was after Bob died. And she called and said, "Can you come get me?" And I said, "I'll be glad to." And I drove to Fort Worth and I picked her up, and she said, "I have 5 prescriptions to fill." 5 prescriptions, painkillers and antidepressants. And she had been in for addiction for a week. They were just different painkillers and different antidepressants.
After she did that, she took up drinking, and she had diabetes. My mom was a mess.
I couldn't get a hold of her. And my grandmother called me and said she had been trying to get a hold of her all day and she couldn't get a hold of her. And so we called my brother.
I drove from Addison to Arlington, and once again drove as fast as I could, like I did when I got the news about my father. I just pulled up in the yard and saw the papers were still out in the front yard and stuff, and knew something was wrong, and then just ran in the house, like any son, I think, that would protect their mother if you think something's wrong. I mean, I was gonna run through that door and demolish anything that was bad in there. But I ran in there and I looked around the corner and saw her leg on the floor.
She had taken a lot of Tylenol PM to try to sleep. And we don't know whether or not she had had alcohol. It didn't show up in the toxicology report.
I ran to the phone and called 911, and then on that one I did start hyperventilating, and I was just, I guess, freaking out, and just trying to get the ambulance there, hoping there was some kind of a, chance that she would still be alive.
It was anything planned, but she also, I don't think she wanted to be a part of this world anymore. I was having PTSD terribly. I mean, all kinds of flashbacks. And so they sent me to a boarding home in South Dallas. They were supposed to monitor when they gave us our medication, and they left the medication in Ziploc bags on the top of the refrigerator. And I was there about 3 days, and it was a really awful boarding home. It was seriously depressing. The man and the woman who owned it lived there. The man was an alcoholic, and he was driving us around, and it was bad. So I went to the refrigerator and I got my bottle of medication and I took all of it. it turns out that they found me, and I was still alive, the boarding home owners. And instead of calling 911, they put me in the car and drove me to Baylor Hospital in Dallas and threw me out of the car. And I landed on my left side on the curb right outside the ER, so with my purse. And the paramedics found me.
I think it started out with my sister taking pills for maybe anxiety or some other stuff or pain or whatever, and that spiraled out of control, causing her to be a drug addict. I think when you're a drug addict, your brain's gonna function in a way with the chemicals or whatever to try to get you to say whatever you can to get more drugs.
I was very depressed, and I think even in my marriage I was depressed, but I didn't realize it. My brother and I were having some trouble. The depression had come back, the medicine wasn't working anymore, and I wrote a note in June and took all the medication again.
I woke up one day and my grandmother said she's on the floor and apple juice was spilt everywhere, and my grandmother walked in there, I guess, to see what was wrong with her and almost slipped on the apple juice. Well, if my grandmother slips on the apple juice, she breaks her hip, right? Well, my grandmother herself would say at this point, this isn't just Heather creating problems for Heather. This is a situation for my grandmother. I'm placing my grandmother in. I wouldn't be worried personally about falling on the apple juice or whatever, but I don't want my grandmother falling on it and the suicide attempts. I mean, my grandmother's daughter is dead. Her son-in-law committed suicide, and now here's her grandmother, and it's right in her face all the time.
And they called 911, and I woke up again in ICU, and I had respiratory failure, cut my arm multiple times with like a mirror I found that I hid. I swallowed a battery. I thought of ways I could hang myself on the door. I had it set up, and they came by and they saw it. They made me take it down.
At that point, it just wasn't safe for Heather to live with us anymore, and it wasn't. It's not something I should have to go through, or my grandmother should have to go through, or whatever. And at that point, we went to the hospital, packed up a bag. I think I wrote a note and said, we can't give you the care that you need here at 433 Lakeview. So you're going to have to figure out. Somebody else is going to have to take on this responsibility. I'm sorry, we didn't sign up for this.
I believe that I've always had mental illness. I just didn't know it, like early at 21 and during 22. I was self-medicating big time, with cocaine and all that stuff. And but came here and I've been here over a year now. And it's, it's not what you would say a perfect situation, but it's a good situation, My son is Christian, and a tattoo for him, and he's Christian and has an A for the anarchy sign, because that's how he signed his last name. The last place he was at was in Alabama, and luckily his ID went back to my mother's address, and the police showed up there and said that he had been drinking all day, and he decided to do some heroin, which was weird for him because he hadn't done that in a long time. But he took some heroin, and then they noticed he was having trouble breathing, and then ambulance couldn't get there in time.
Three clients that's been over-medicated. Well, they done almost OD'd because they giving them too much medication. Some of them is taking too much medication. Take Kimberly, for instance. They give her so much medication. So one day I came in here, she's running into walls, she's dropping things, but She's one of those ones that'll go from doctor to doctor getting medication. So if you don't check this, every time a pharmacy comes to that door and you don't start checking and see, okay, now she got this and she got like I was checking the medicine when he was in here. She got this and she got that, but they'll go to doctors and get, she's trying to kill herself because her son killed himself. And it's about that time of year.
He was a good boy, and I loved him very much. Very much. But I also have another son, too, that I had to stick around for. Because when I found out he died, I wanted to die. And I went to the hospital, had to be put in the hospital. Because there was no reason for me to live as far as I could see.
I got sense enough to know, I've been in the business long enough, that all them Tylenol for, she's hunting pain pills. She's addicted to pain pills because she used to be, an addict. And her son killed himself with her doing drugs.
I have encountered the long-term, primarily neurologic effects of psychiatric medication, and there is a growing grassroots awareness about the potential for these medications to induce potential permanent damage.
I find it shocking for those of us who are older and not on near as many drugs that somebody that age could be taking that many drugs. And I wonder all the time what it's doing to her system and to her brain. I find it amazing that somebody who has ingested the number of drugs she has, and I mean prescription legal drugs, over, let's say, the last 10 years, that she can make complete sentences and joke with me and have great conversations and remember things. How on earth do you remember anything when you've had that many drugs?
Okay, we're ready.
Come on over, have a
Okay.
seat.
Let me put this on.
Is that all that up there? Yeah, maybe.
And I brought a picture
Perfect.
of the way it used to be before I box colored it a couple times, and it was like this color.
I love that.
With the layers. And
That's gorgeous.
it was shorter than it is now, so.
Are you still loving the silver?
Yeah. Oh my God.
Have you thought about doing anything like funky with it, or just something?
I'm in recovery. I'm not completely there, but I'm a hell of a long way from where I was,
My hope is that Heather will be out in her own apartment or with a roommate or some good living situation. And every single month, I see her make another stride to being a little bit better and a little bit better. And maybe when she's ready, that'll be something she can achieve again.
I feel like Heather's came a long way, and Kimberly. Yes, I feel like all of us have, really. But you can see most improvement with like Heather and Kimberly. Before, Heather was going back and forth to the hospital, and when you talk to her, now she's doing things like marketing things, helping other people out, because she's a very smart girl. Yes, So I feel like she's came a long way also, yes.
Yeah, I think she's doing good because she's doing some work for somebody, some kind of advertisement, some kind of work that she do at night. And I think if she could do some more stuff like that, she's fine. First, her mental state. To me, it's a lot better than it was 2-3 years ago. A whole lot better. So.
I don't know. I think that it's just time to move on. I want to get back to normal life, and I took a trip to Idaho to see a friend who was sick in October last year on my own, and everybody was all worried about it, and it was fine, and I know that what I have can come back. but I can't live in the fear that it's going to come back. So, I don't know. I mean, I think my mom and dad would have wanted me to move on. And it's going to be extremely hard to leave Kimberly and Marcia. I mean, all the girls, but really those two, because they know everything about me. And I'll be moving somewhere where they don't. But at the same time, I can kind of control how much they do know. Because it'll be a different situation, and I don't have to be so defined by the fact that I had been in Terrell or I had been here or there. They are all mental health patients with, we all have the same psychiatrist in the new house, which is a good thing. But there's 2 little dogs that live there. There's a garden they planted. They've got 2 of them have cars. So if you need to go somewhere, you can get somewhere. It's just a big step up from a boarding home life, which is really kind of only a step up from being on the streets. So, or a shelter, I guess. So I think this time last year I had decided that I might be in a boarding home forever. I really, deep down inside, I kind of thought, oh, I've got these problems and I'm on disability and there's no way that I can get away from this atmosphere, and even if I could, would I? And that I needed it in my life for some reason, and it's just changed. I mean, the further I get away from the things that have happened, the time at Terrell, the tragedies, everything, I still have flashbacks and I still deal with depression sometimes. It's not like it just magically went away. 4 or 5 years ago, I wanted nothing but to die, and now I get very scared when I have a test at the doctor. They're going to find something that would be terminal or something like that, because all I want to do is live. You know, I want to live, and I want to have a good life. You know, and I think I can. Phantom pain. She lost the strongest limb of her family tree. Tomorrow she will sit staring at lukewarm bathwater, struggling to balance chin on knees, not succumbing to the gravity of the ghost who left behind only money and blame. Candle wax drips onto the water's surface, swirling and gliding like a 2-bit gypsy's tea leaves, a study in hindsight. Remembering his presence, a towering figure who opened the eyes of statues but now joins them in cold marble skin. If I had a brush, I would paint his silence.